Streets of Rage 4. I talked about 1980X in my last video, and I mentioned that I was playing that game because of the obvious inspiration that it had taken from Streets of Rage. I had no idea that Streets of Rage 4 was going to launch like a couple of weeks after that last video dropped. I'd kept fairly up to date with Streets of Rage 4 previews during its build up because it was one of my more anticipated games of the year, but all we knew was that it was coming out in 2020. But out of nowhere, 30th of April, there it was. I'm sure you know this, but the Streets of Rage games were popular brawlers back on the Mega Drive in the 90s. Gameplay was fun, especially playing co-op with a friend. Any game that had that was always a big plus for 8-year-old me. But what made Streets of Rage stand out was the overall attitude, the visual design, and of course the music. The original Streets of Rage 1 has one of my very favourite gaming soundtracks. So my expectations were quite high for Streets of Rage 4, but at the same time I knew what I was getting myself into. You know, times change, games change. A horizontal scrolling beat 'em up isn't exactly what you'd call AAA these days, but I didn't care about that. I think my expectations were even higher though for the soundtrack. I mean, imagine if one of your favourite bands hadn't put out an album since 1992, or maybe the last album was some experimental shite. That's what my headspace was going into this. But let's go over the gameplay first. Streets of Rage 4 plays very similarly to the previous 3, and the structure is just the same. There's 12 levels, taking 5 or 10 minutes each, and you know, you just beat everyone up. There's a couple of new additions to the formula though with 4. Your characters have these Blitz moves now. These are special attacks which you can pull off at any time, but they cost you some life. Now these moves were in Streets of Rage 2 and 3, and to be honest I've never been too fond of that mechanic of losing health to hit a special move. But 4 manages a kind of nice compromise. See, if you pull this move off and you don't get hit afterwards, you can earn that health back by punching people. It's a nice wee risk-reward mechanic. It's not totally dissimilar to Bloodborne actually, as I'm sure you can guess. This is one of several similarities that Streets of Rage 4 shares with Bloodborne. You can go mental with the Blitz moves if you want. All attack, your health's going down but you keep hitting folk, just be careful to not get hit. Besides that, there's some kind of like physics-based obstacles like a big demolition ball, which are really fun. And now you can throw any weapon at an enemy and you can like catch it on the rebound if you time it just right. I remember when everyone lost their minds at how satisfying it was to catch the Leviathan axe in God of War a couple of years ago. This is even better than that, it's fucking amazing. I think sound design plays an important part in things like this as well. Like hitting enemies in this game just always feels really satisfying, and bad sound design can really throw something like that off, but it's really good here, really good. Beyond that though, there's not much different here to what you've played in the old Streets of Rage, but I'm so glad they didn't turn Streets of Rage into something, you know, where you level up and you have to choose moves to unlock in a skill tree. I mean, I'm fine with that in like Batman, but you know, it's not in Streets of Rage. So I give the gameplay a big thumbs up. Once I beat Streets of Rage 4 the first time, I played it over and over again, unlocking new characters like the ones you see in the story, and even better, retro versions of Axel and the gang in all their 16-bit glory. You can play the full story again if you want, or you can just jump into a single level. The 4 default characters you get in this all play pretty differently, and you can switch characters after every level, which is a wise move too. Particularly, I had fun with one of the new guys, Floyd. I'm not usually very good with these kind of slow brute kind of characters, but being able to chuck anyone right across the screen or clunk 2 goons' heads together made Floyd so much fun to play as, especially in the obligatory lift level. I mean, I enjoy Streets of Rage 1 and 2 a lot, but I don't think I ever beat those games over and over again in the space of a few weeks like I have with this one. So yeah, I think Streets of Rage 4 is the best playing entry of the series. Now let's talk about the graphics. The game's got a really vivid comic anime kind of look. It probably looks more like Comic Zone on the Mega Drive than the original Streets of Rage games. It looks nice, and when you see the original character sketches from like 1991 or whenever, they were actually quite similar to this. They just didn't have the technology to match it back then. So you could even say that this is truer to the original artistic vision than the old ones are. But I'll always prefer the gritty pixel look of the Mega Drive games. And I'd love to see some crazy sprite action on my PS4, but I guess that's just a personal preference. I definitely don't dislike how it looks. Now on to the music. It's good. A couple of the songs are really good, but it's not got anything like the consistent brilliance of the soundtracks of 1 and 2. It's actually a bit of a compilation effort. So you've got the main composer, Olivier Derivier, what a name by the way, doing most of the main level music, and then you've got guests doing like most of the boss themes. Then you've got Yuzo Koshiro, who he did the soundtracks for Streets of Rage 1, 2 and 3. He composes like the first few songs you'll hear in the game, like, you know, the main menu music, the character select, the first level. It's actually a pretty cool idea. It's almost like a passing of the torch and like easing the transition from Yuzo to Olivier Derivier. But even Yuzo's stuff isn't up to his high standards here for me. It does sound like Streets of Rage music brought up to date, and like I said, there's some really good stuff, and it's still one of the better soundtracks you'll hear this year. I'm listening to it as I write this, but I guess my expectations were a bit too high here, and there's nothing as good as that Beating Heart tune from 1980X, which is funny because that was obviously trying so hard to pay homage to Streets of Rage. But hey, there's always the option to stick the old tunes on instead with the retro soundtrack mode. That was a great idea. What's weird about it though is, for the Streets of Rage 1 music, it's only the Game Gear or Master System versions that you hear, whereas for the Streets of Rage 2 music, it's the Mega Drive. So I don't know, what's that about? So, gun to my head, yeah, I prefer the look and the sound of that 1980X segment to Streets of Rage 4, but overall, Streets of Rage 4 is so fun to play, miles beyond anything in 1980X, and like I said, probably my favourite Streets of Rage game. So one of my most anticipated games of the year was a big old success. It was very much the Sonic Mania of the series, I reckon, so high praise indeed.